Hey everyone. So it looks like more and more Republicans and former Republicans are coalescing around the Democratic nominee, Kamala Harris. This just in from CBS today. Ronald Reagan's former staff backed the Harris-Walz ticket. So 17 former staff members of the late Republican President Reagan are endorsing the Democrat Kamala Harris. In a joint statement first obtained by CBS News, the staff members wrote that Reagan, if alive, would have supported Harris. That's interesting because it's a bold claim for sure. Um, Reagan and Trump were actually good friends. There's a picture of them famously shaking hands. I think it was like in 1987, and they're in tuxedos together. They look like they got along. There's a lot of crossover between Reagan and Trump. I would say on economics, I don't know that much about foreign policy or relation with the institutions and democracy. Some crossover on social issues, but yeah, I don't know if he would have supported Harris. I think that's a bold claim. President Reagan famously spoke about a time for choosing. While he is not here to experience the current moment, we who worked for him in the White House, in the administration, in campaigns, and on his personal staff know that he would join us in supporting the Harris-Walz ticket, the group writes. So the time for choosing we face today is a choice between integrity and demagoguery, and the choice must be Harris-Walz, the group added. Our votes in this election are less about supporting the Democratic Party and more about our resounding support for democracy. And that is an interesting point, and it's actually, I think, important that they put that in there because the same could probably be said for Dick Cheney. Like, Dick Cheney is not coming out as a progressive or a leftist. He is still a registered Republican. Go on his Wikipedia. He did not change his party. He's voting for Kamala Harris out of resounding support for democracy, quotation marks. He believes Trump is a threat to democracy, and so do these former Reagan staffers. So this comes after over 230 former officials for Presidents George H.W. Bush and George W. Bush have also backed Harris, in addition to campaign staffers for Republican presidential nominees John McCain and Mitt Romney. And Biden actually received a similar amount of GOP support in his 2020 run against Trump. Remember, famously, there was John Kasich. Former Reagan staff backing Harris includes Ken Edelman, the U.S. ambassador to the UN and U.S. Arms Control Director under Reagan, as well as B.J. Cooper, the special assistant and deputy press secretary to Reagan. Edelman had endorsed former President Barack Obama's 2008 campaign, as well as President Biden's 2020 run. He backed Romney's 2012 campaign, but was against Trump's 2016 run. The list also includes Pete Souza. I've actually seen that guy's pictures before. He's a good photographer, the chief White House photographer for both Reagan and Obama. And the group says that they are looking to convince other former Reagan staffers to back the Harris-Walz ticket, calling it, quote, the only path forward, toward an America that is strong and viable for our children and grandchildren for years to come. CBS News has reached out to Trump's campaign for reaction. Trump has gotten support from only a couple of Democratic officials who have since distanced themselves from the party, such as RFK Jr. and Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard. It's pretty clear where the bipartisan momentum is here. We could also kind of see the writing on the walls for Gabbard and Kennedy that they were becoming disillusioned with the Democratic Party, and a lot of their rhetoric was right-wing coded. But yeah, Reagan is different, I would say, from both of the Bushes in the sense that he's kind of frequently touted as a conservative superhero. If you ask people who are right-leaning generally who they like better, Reagan or George W. Bush, I would imagine that a vast majority of them would say Ronald Reagan. I think he is to the Republican Party what Franklin Roosevelt is to the Democratic Party. Obviously, it's not a one-to-one comparison because FDR served more than 3 terms. But yeah, they were both really beloved by their parties. They won landslide victories, in their elections. Reagan smited Carter and just destroyed Walter Mondale. He was a guy who knew how to use rhetoric, and he was a good debater and really charismatic. And one big difference between him and Trump is that Reagan was upbeat and smiled a lot and laughed a lot, and Trump constantly just looks pissed off, and famously just posted on his Truth Social, I believe, "I hate Taylor Swift." So Reagan is like morning in America. Trump is like midnight in America. I think that's a good summary. But yeah, so and then we see Harris kind of running on this joy theme, like I'm campaigning on joy, and that seems like the type of thing that would appeal to Reagan. Um, but overall, I don't know if he would be on board with Harris's campaign. I imagine that if he were alive today, like George W. Bush, he wouldn't back either candidate in this race. He wouldn't really say anything. He wouldn't go the full Dick Cheney of supporting Kamala Harris. I think some of her economic policies are a little too regulatory in nature, talking about capping prices and stuff. I think he would be afraid that that's socialism or something. But I definitely think that he would agree with Harris on the importance for a peaceful transfer of power, and strongly disagree with Trump and what he's done to our institutions and how he's basically tried to foster resentment against them. So, yeah, that is my summary of whether or not Reagan would support Kamala Harris. Really interesting to see people crossing parties to vote for a different candidate of a different party. And as always, if you like this video, if you found it interesting or insightful, please leave a like, comment, or subscribe. Let's grow the channel together. I really do appreciate it. And I look forward to speaking to you all in my next video.